Could you tell us, why you think we should let you out today and tell us what happened? What were you doing?
Well, what happened during that time period?
Yes.
It was possibly about 16 years ago. She walked in on me in the bedroom and she tried to tickle me from behind when I came out of the shower. And that's when everything started happening back then. And I tried to tell her, you know, to get out the room, but she kept on, kept on. She kept asking me questions and stuff like that. And one thing led to another, and what happened after that, I was really highly ashamed of.
What you are listening to is a monster who is talking about a 4-year-old child. Yes. But what makes this even crazier is that he is up for parole after serving just 2 years of his 3.5-year sentence. Make it make sense. With that, let's jump in.
You know, I should never have happened. I beat myself up for about 16 years and made myself sick. But she touched me. That's as far as it went for us, touching me, stuff like that. And I've been ashamed of it ever since. It should never happen. And I've been trying to find a way to forgive myself. The thing, because I was in deep shame. So I went back to church, looked for answers. Went back to my Bible, looked for answers. And I have found the answers I've been looking for in order for me to, what I have done and I should have never done. And I think during that time period, I believe it was I kept telling her mama to keep her out of the room and to put a lock on my door because she always wanted, she always like to play, like grandpa, like all my grandchildren always like to play, stick behind you, tickle you. And that's how it all started. And I was came out the shower and like I said, I'm ashamed of it. If it never had happened, I made myself sick over that. And it's disgusting. I should never have done that. I shouldn't have allowed that to even happen. I mean, all the children I helped raise, I have 2 nieces at grandma's now. I raised my granddaughter, and she still lives with us. She's like 23 right now. That was the only time this like that ever happened. Like I said, I have deep regrets for having someone that trusted me, and I earned that trust. You know, I prayed several times a day since that happened. I actually God to forgive me for that because I cannot forgive myself. I cannot. And like I say, I really ate up about that.
Okay. All right. Warden, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I don't have anything to add, sir.
Okay, I'm talking, Mr. Brown, you have anything else you'd like to say? I saw you look down at your paperwork.
Yes, sir. I have a lot of Bible courses I have taken because I can't find.
We have all of your courses you took.
Yes, sir. I have a whole bunch of them I have taken.
Right.
And also certificates.
Yes, sir, we got them all.
Yes, sir. I have. My wife was trying to say, but she's able to do anything because of her condition.
They have copies.
Huh?
They have copies of it. The board has copies of everything.
Oh, you do have copies? Oh,
Yes,
good.
sir.
Oh, I'm glad. I didn't think it made it through.
No, I got all of that.
Oh, okay. You had the letters everybody wrote from my church
I do.
and also the one my son wrote.
Yep, I got you. We got all of that in our file. I don't know the son was there. It's all in the file. Yes, sir. We have everything in the file.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you even received it. I was worried about that. It really was. Because like my son, he wrote it right on the problem. What he wrote, you know, because he one time he was he worked for Mauricia Parole. Now he's a school teacher which I'm proud of my son. He's been doing good. And his granddaughter, my granddaughter, his daughter, is fixing to be a lawyer. I'm kind of proud of her too, you know? But that's all I have to say, sir. I mean, I don't, that I'm really, really, really ashamed of what happened. And I guarantee you, that's not ever gonna. I mean, have raised a lot of children.
Okay,
But like I say, I beat myself up today, even today. I still beat myself up for that.
Okay.
I pray to God for forgiveness. But thank you anyway, sir. Oh, Sister Karen, Joanne. He's been so long.
okay. All right, let's move on. In favor, we have Stacy Brown, your sister. Miss Brown, what do you want to tell us?
Hi, I wanted to echo the sentiments of my brother. I know throughout his life, he's been a responsible person, has raised children and grandchildren. And even when I was growing up, as far as I knew, nothing has ever happened with any of us growing up, being around him. Besides that, um, he's been a respectable person in the community. Um, he's been in the military in the past, as far as the Marines and the National Guard. He's also been an employee of the prison system in the past. And he's always been active in volunteer work in his with the fire department and with the like at the VFW hall and things like that. And I know that whatever decision you do make, we all will respect that decision. But if he is allowed to go back home and serve out the remainder of his parole and even for the rest of his life, he will adhere to whatever stipulations are going to be placed on his freedom, because I know a charge like this is serious. And then once he's back out into the community, he will have to, make sure he doesn't do certain things and don't go to certain places. So I know that he'll be there to follow whatever rules that are set forth for him. And I personally am worried about his health and his wife's health, because they are older and have a lot of different medical issues. And they've often just been there both for each other, because they've been married for, I think, almost 50 years now, 46 years. So I know that they need each other just to help make it through, day-to-day life, that kind of thing. So.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Malvina Blackledge.
Sister.
Half sister, is she on?
Yes, hi.
No, who's speaking? Okay, you're not speaking, okay, but I just wanted to notify that you were on, okay?
Well, if you have
Alright,
a question, I'll answer it.
Ma'am?
If you
No,
have
ma'am,
any
we don't have
questions,
this question, no, ma'am. But, thank you for being here in support. Okay, now we're gonna go to the opposition. First, we will go to Robin Papera, the victim's friend. Robin, what do you have to tell us?
I'm actually the victim's aunt.
Okay,
Yeah, so my mom is actually Gilbert Brown's sister-in-law. There's some backstory to this, which makes this extra upsetting and heinous. In the 1980s, actually, my sister went to live with my aunt and my uncle in Louisiana after actually being molested by her father. So my sister is Shyla's, the victim's mother. So my sister was molested, and she went to live with Gilbert and my aunt as a solace. So she left North Carolina and went to Louisiana. Obviously, sadly, history repeated itself in Louisiana. So my sister, after a divorce from her husband and being stranded in Washington State, actually came to live with me in the 90s in North Carolina. That's where she had Shyla, who was an innocent, obviously, little girl, 3 years old when she went to live in Louisiana with Gilbert and Karen. And Gilbert actually used the term 16 years So if you subtract that from how old Shyla is today, she was under the age of 5. So Stephanie, my sister, didn't actually think that Gilbert would hurt her daughter. My sister's not alive to stand up for her daughter or herself, unfortunately. Before she died, she actually put in testimony that the same thing had happened to her by both my father and I don't know what the correct word is, but potentially Gilbert. So my sister as well. I actually view Gilbert as an opportunistic monster. The fact that this had happened to my sister and now she had her little girl living in the same home is unusually just cruel. We would find out later that it wasn't just Shyla, that there was like extra harassment going on with Stephanie as well. The fact that my uncle, who we trusted, would do this to a little girl for so long is just absolutely abhorrent. Shyla would actually grow up to be an outcast with outbursts and antisocial. She was admitted to a mental health facility in her teens for harming herself and for trying to commit suicide. And through therapy is actually how we found out that she had been molested, not because Gilbert felt guilty and the need to repent through the Bible. It was actually the victim who came forward and said, "This happened to me," by someone who she trusted, who was supposed to have protected her, not preyed on her. Shyla would be able to describe parts of Gilbert's body in detail to prove that she did, that what happened to her happened. And she's not here today, there with you, because she's still not mentally well from what happened to her. She's not a productive member of society. She's not Gilbert's children who have done incredibly well and a granddaughter who is going to be an attorney. She's not that because she was abused. And it was, again, heinous. The research, and I'm sure you all know this, shows that without intense therapy, child molesters will likely commit the same crime again within 2 to 5 years. And 90% of those abused are abused by somebody they know and trust. And those abusers, luckily, this one apparently recognizes what he did was wrong. Maybe he can be rehabilitated, maybe not. But Shyla has received a lifetime of pain. She'll never be that same 3-year-old who went to live in Louisiana for solace. I hear an apology, but I don't know that I feel that apology. I don't know that rehabilitation therapy has happened while he's been there. And he does have access to other children in his life and will have access to more in the future. The average sentence for a child sexual offender is 211 months in the United States. And many don't see prison at all. I'm thankful that Gilbert has seen prison. This sentence was significantly under what the average is. To release him is unjust to Shyla and the other children to whom he may have access. I ask that parole actually be denied, that his short sentence for hurting a child isn't enough as it stands. He was a volunteer fireman, a prison guard employed by the state, and most importantly, a trusted uncle. He violated a child and all that he stood for in those trusted positions. I think my opinion is to keep him where he is in prison.
I'll wrap it up. Okay,
Thank
thank you. Thank you. Okay,
Therefore, these two.
Denise Strickland, Brent.
She's not anymore. She's not speaking.
Okay. Mr. Thomas Moore?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you approach the podium and tell us what you have to say, sir?
Hard to even know where to start with it. How did it impact our family? How did it impact Shyla? When I found out what happened, I actually took custody of my niece. I'm a single man, have 3 businesses, but I believe every child should have a chance and be protected and not hurt. This is a generational issue in my family, which all the family knows about. When my sister and brother were originally sent to Louisiana, it was to be protected by my aunt and my uncle. They invited them into their homes. They offered my mother the help that they felt she needed at that time. Stephanie had already been sexually abused, and only a predator would see that and see that he has another opportunity to do it again, which is what happened. I was present when I found out what happened with Shyla, my sister's first words to my face, and I was a witness of it, is that SOB did the same thing to me. When I looked at her and asked her how could she leave her child alone with him in disgust of her, which I'm sad I looked at her that way because it's generational, and I don't think that she ever got help. But she said, he told me he only had a thing for me. There is no doubt in God's grand creation that this was not a mistake. There is no doubt in God's grand creation that he is anything less than a pedophile or a monster. And there is no doubt that he will do it again. In front of all of y'all just now, he pointed out every way that some little 4-year-old girl made a mistake. How can a 4-year-old girl make a mistake? He didn't say he made a mistake. He put it on her. On top of that, took 4 years to even get him to walk into a police department here in Louisiana. I fought that battle myself for 4 years, by myself, with no help. I found every piece of evidence Louisiana needed to convict him, from forensic interviews from police departments to committing my niece into a hospital in Cumberland, Virginia, and driving every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. The only parent out of all of them to support their child. Louisiana lost all the evidence. They call me up and tell me 3 DAs in, we're real sorry, Mr. Moore. This case is the oldest case on the docket, and unfortunately, there's not enough evidence to try it, and we're going to drop it. I went and found as much evidence as I can and recovered it and brought it to the new DA. And she told me that I should feel lucky. They offered a 3.5-year plea deal for Gilbert, and I should feel lucky that he got that. The ball has been dropped everywhere. It would be a huge injustice just on itself. My sister, I love her. I'm glad she heard an apology. I did not. I heard a man blame everyone for everything except for owning his heinous act. And he should be there for 35 years, not 3.5. I would lose all faith in justice if he did not stay there.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comment. Okay, now we will have Mr. Butch Wilson, 22nd JDC, Assistant DA.
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry Mr. Moore took issue with the prosecution of this case. I can assure him that we handled it to the best of our abilities and based on the proof that was present. Having said that, on behalf of the district attorney, I'm a bit confused about what Mr. Brown thinks he did wrong. I heard a lot of hemming and hawing during his speech or whatever it was a few minutes ago. He continues to maintain this ridiculous story that this child walked in on him while he was masturbating. That is not what the child related. That's not what he pled guilty to. What he has come here to tell you today is that he is sorry for the fact that he's in jail, but he really didn't do anything wrong. That flies in the face of the proof in this case, and it is more than an adequate basis for this man to serve every single bit of his sentence. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you getting on with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown, your case has been assigned to me, so I'm gonna ask the questions. I'm not gonna ask a lot of questions because quite frankly, I don't think I need to ask a lot. First thing you did was blame it on the child. Man, that gets under my skin. You blamed it on the child. You had to lock the child out. I mean, I'm sorry. I have no question.
Mr. Brown, I have no questions. I think that everything we've seen today will be indicative in our vote.
I have no questions.
Okay, we're gonna vote now. I vote first. As I said, I see no taking of responsibility. I see no remorse due to victim opposition and law enforcement opposition. My vote today is to deny your parole.
My vote is also to deny based on victim and law enforcement opposition.
My vote's also to deny. I concur with Mr. Chairman.
Okay, your parole has been denied.
Cockroach. And you know what's it's where do you start with this hearing? It's sensory overload. I had to listen to this a couple of times. I had to take notes, and still I don't know where to start. Now I don't have any information that I can share in terms of reports, or because of course it's just a child, no one cares. But what stuck out, I think, the most to me about this was the hero in this story. The hero, Thomas More, who an entrepreneur, a businessman, single, but he still takes her in under his wing. He takes her to the doc. He does everything that he needs to do, but then he speaks the truth from personal experience, saying how broken the system is. And he calls out the ADA. He says that it was 3 district attorneys later. Oh, they said, oh, we lost all of the documents. Now, that might have happened during Katrina. I heard that they had lost documents. God forbid they put it in a thing called a computer. So it was just papers. And, maybe that's true. But the idea, again, it just shows how little they care about a child, because very well that if the person had done something that they actually took seriously, they would have prosecuted it. Clearly, this man who's not a detective, who's not in the legal system, who is just someone who clearly cares about something that was wrong, he went and gathered all the evidence that was there. He went and put it all together. He went and did it. He did it. And then still, the DA, that same office, says to him, you're lucky. You're lucky that we were able to even get him 3.5 years. Then after that mic drop, this guy was just incredible. How many thousands of parole hearings have we have to see someone come out there like this and just lay it out from personal experience? I would love to get him on this and talk to him about this experience, because I would just love him to know that there is a huge community of hundreds of thousands of us, if not more, that understand the pain that he went through, and I think appreciate what he did to bring, I can't even say to call it justice to this case, because 3.5 years is a mockery of what should have happened. But at least he didn't get away with it. And he did it. He carried it on his back. They said he should feel lucky with the evidence they have at 3.5 years. It's just, and then what we saw, which I think is, again, the two-sideness or two-face was what I call it, of the DA. And it's interesting because in one sense, Mr. Bush, the ADA, he showed up, which is shocking. We just don't see that. I don't know what made him show up. We've never seen him before. But he shows up and he says something which pisses me off at the beginning. He says, I'm sorry that Mr. Moore took issue with the prosecution of this case. We handled it at the best we could. And it's like, shut up. Really? This is how competent your office is? This is the best you could? A plea deal for 3.5 years? Really? But then he goes on to lay his own mic drop, and he states out the facts, and he says it passionately and and well, and he delivers it well. And for that, I am thankful. But I still have a bad taste in my mouth with the way he started off. I'm sorry Mr. Moore took issue with the prosecution of this case. What about, I'm sorry that the case, I'm sorry that our office struggled so hard, and we are appreciative that Mr. Moore did what he did to allow us to prosecute this case. Instead, he took it defensively. And then you find out, and he talks about, he says, when he first heard that I guess it was his sister. So this child is his niece. And he says that when he first found out that this man had done it to her, and he, in my opinion, was rightfully shocked. And the words that she had said to him is, oh, what did she say? She said something like, oh, no, it was just me that he would do it to. He told me he only had a thing for me. And, I'll leave it at what her brother said, Mr. Moore. And then Robin spoke very well as well. The idea that he even has supporters is just absolutely insane. And then he goes on just saying things like, I raised lots of children. I've been around children I've raised so many. And it's like, it's only getting me more sick and disturbed as I hear that. And he's blaming her the entire time. And, Mr. Freeman's body language, I guess, spoke volumes. Thank you, Richard, for pointing that out. I shouldn't have done that. I should not have allowed that to happen. Shut up. It's and also what she had brought up, her sister was, she was laying down a lot of data, which was nice. We haven't heard that before, right? Research shows that they'll recommit within 2 to 5 years. That the average sentence is 211 months. I mean, she's bringing down dropping data, and then Mr. Freeman actually tells her to wrap it up right there at the end, which is upsetting to me. I just, the idea that a roach like this, who is clearly a danger to society, who clearly is, as everyone can see it, is going to get out no matter what soon. And like they said, he's oh my God. And we heard it first from the ADA's mouth, and we heard it from Mr. Moore about how broken the system is and how he had to fight. They can make a movie out of this, how he had to basically do all the work because their detectives were too busy because the ADA said there's not enough evidence, but clearly there was, but they didn't care because this guy, he didn't rob a bank. This guy didn't steal some cars. This guy wasn't, possession with intent to distribute. No, it was just a child, just a 4-year-old child. So they said, no, we don't have evidence. This just proves everything that we already knew. Again, this is why we do it. This is why. And with that, we're going to move on to another one that will just shake you. With that, let's go.
We had been together so long that she did call him daddy. And all she wanted to know afterwards was, why did daddy hurt her? My daughter's mentally handicapped. This was not some 19-year-old that he decided to have a little sex with. This was a mentally handicapped person that cannot do anything for themselves. So this is not, oops, I slept with her 19-year-old daughter. So my wish is that he just stay in for every second that was allowed by the law.
Now, he is serving a 25-year sentence. His full term date is 11/27/2027. So he is trying to get out 3 years early. Let's see if the parole board thinks he served enough time or not.
We're gonna get started now. Mr. Boone, tell us, what you did to get you in there. What led up to it, and why should we consider letting you out today?
Yes, sir. In 2002, I assumed that that was gonna be a good year for me, and I started drinking again. And I caught a DWI, which instead of going and getting help, I allowed that shame and that guilt to continue my drinking. And to the point where 1 week before I caught this crime, I was fired from a job because of my drug and alcohol abuse. The morning of the crime, my wife at the time woke me up and told me that I was going to have to be the caregiver for my stepdaughter because she was going to have to go to work and we didn't have a caregiver coming in that day. So as soon as my wife left for work, I went out to the truck and got a bottle of vodka and came back in to fill myself a drink. Went back to the bedroom and rolled myself a joint and turned on some pornography and began to masturbate. During that time, my stepdaughter called from the living room that her TV program was over and that she was finished eating. I proceeded to go into the living room and raised my stepdaughter on the floor in the living room. Afterwards, cleaning myself up, got her dressed, and proceeded on that day as if nothing had happened. Later that afternoon, once my wife got home, my daughter needed to use the bathroom. My wife was preparing dinner. My wife asked me to bring her, if I would take her. I said yes. When I did, I noticed that there was some blood in her underpants. So I hurried out of the bathroom to go get some clean ones so that maybe I could hide the fact of what had happened earlier that day. My wife heard the commotion. She immediately came in, confronted me. I confessed. She immediately took Brittany and got her in the van and left. At that time, I knew that I was in trouble. I wrote her a note telling her that I loved her, but I wasn't going to go to prison. And I got in my truck and left as well. Later, my wife called me, told me that the police were looking for me. So I turned around and it was the next morning by then. I turned around and came back, called a friend who was also an attorney, got him to come with me. He come and met me at my house to bring me to the police department to turn myself in. At that time, I went in the medicine cabinet and got a bottle of pills and took a whole bottle of pills before I turned myself in, hoping to kill myself. I went and turned myself in. After being booked, I was put in a holding cell. And when I woke up again, I was in an ambulance on my way to the hospital. And it was told to me that my victim found one of the pills that I had taken and told her mother about it. And that's what saved my life.
All right, why should we let you out today?
So in my 21 years of incarceration, I've come to the conclusion that I cannot be around drugs or alcohol. And I have tried my best to get all the help I can get. I've also turned my life over to helping others as part of my new lifestyle. I seek others to help, and I've been an instructor now for approximately about 12 years of teaching air conditioning and refrigeration to my fellow inmates so they can get a, so they can learn skills that when they go out, they won't have to do anything stupid again for money, that they'll have the skills and to be able to work. Also, I've been working on myself and trying to make sure that I have a understanding of what it was that caused me to act out like I did.
Okay. Okay, now we're gonna go to the warden. Warden, what do you have to say about Mr. Boone?
I don't have anything to add, sir.
Okay. Then we're gonna go to those that are in favor. Jackie Boone Senior, brother.
Yes, sir, I'm here. Would you like me to speak now? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You want us to know about your brother?
Well, he was a strong-headed kid back then, and I'm kind of tore up now, and so just bear with me here. But he was a strong-headed kid, and a lot of things just went wrong. It spiraled out of control. I could tell it was spiral, and I couldn't do anything for it. I feel guilty about that now. Can't say much more about it. He has changed. I can tell you right now, he is not the same person he used to be at all. I talk with him pretty much at least once or twice a month, and I try to go down there, but I don't get down there enough either. I love him to death, and I'm telling you right now, he's not the same person he was then. I mean, we know what happened, and it was terrible, but he's not the same person. Look, he's given his life to Christ. He's done the things that and it's not just speaking either. He's really tried to turn himself around, and he's helped other people. And I know people who came out that know him and say that he's exemplary. So, I mean, there's not much I can say other than that. He's a great kid. Well, he was a great kid then, and he messed up, but he at least took the responsibility and did what he was supposed to do. Didn't make everybody chase him down and do all that. And you understand him. So I'm sorry I can't speak right now.
That's okay. Thank you for participating. Dr. Sanders? Yeah, you can. Mr. Sanders. Dr. Sanders. Leslie Papera?
Yes, sir. So I don't know what to actually say about my brother because he is my older brother, and what he did was horrific. I am a mother to 2 teenage daughters. So to even think about what happened and what he actually did makes me sick. But I've also watched him over the last 20 plus years, and he's not the person now that did those crimes then. I don't know what else to say, but I will tell you just a little bit that, and it doesn't speak to the crime, or it doesn't speak even to the person, and that is that over the last 20 years, he's also been incarcerated while his father and his mother passed away, and he didn't get to be here for them. And so I know that he feels that as well. And I know that that's part of his punishment for what he did. And it only makes it that much worse, but it'll never pay for it. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you, coming in here and, for the comment. Okay, now we're going to the opposition. We will go to Ms. Cap.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Lewis. Tell us your name and relationship to the victim and, tell us what you want to tell us.
Okay. Well, my name is Carol Lewis, and I am the mother of the victim, Brittany Metrojohn. This is what I can say. I was with Brian Boone for 10 years. So it wasn't like a casual relationship. I do not recall drugs. Apparently the wool was pulled way over my eyes. May have been some drinking, but nothing was ever serious. I trusted this man after 10 years. And my daughter is handicapped. She suffered a head injury in a car accident when she was 3 years old. So at the age of 19 is when he raped her. We had been together so long that she did call him daddy. And all she wanted to know afterwards was, why did daddy hurt her? So, yes, 20 years has gone by, but what he did will never, ever go away. I'm opposed to him getting out anytime soon. I think, unfortunately, I would love for laws to be looked at. And, my daughter is mentally handicapped. This was not some 19-year-old that he decided to have a little sex with. This was a mentally handicapped person that cannot do anything for themselves. So this is not, oops, I slept with her 19-year-old daughter. So my wish is that he just stay in for every second that was allowed by the law. And I wish that the law would change and then nobody would be allowed to come down on the charge for something like that. But that's neither here nor there. I am opposed, and those are the reasons why. Once again, this was a handicapped person that could not say no, could not understand what happened to them. So I'm begging the pardon board to please just let him spend the rest of this time that was allowed by the law that says you have to spend this much time in there for raping a handicapped child. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We know it's very tough, but we appreciate you being here. Miss Lynette Guthrie, victim's aunt.
Hi, yes, this is Lynette Guthrie. The victim is my niece, and I am sister to Carolyn Lewis. I am opposed to any parole prior to his sentence being carried out, full sentence. His act of raping my niece has changed the entire life of my niece and my sister. My niece can do nothing for herself. She does not walk. She is mentally handicapped from a traumatic brain injury and lots of damage to her body. There will never be a time that there is going to be trust for someone to stay alone with my niece. That was taken away. And I have been a witness to the torment that his act of rape to my niece has caused my family. I am, I too was not familiar with any drugs on his part. Also, minimal drinking. I did not see those excessive things from my viewpoint. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, we appreciate you speaking, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, this case was assigned to Ms. Ledoux. Ms. Ledoux, would you lead the questioning, please?
In reviewing the adult criminal record, I did see 4 DWI arrests prior to this. You may have had a null frost, or it may have been just a misdemeanor. One says record not found, but there was an arrest. So it's evident that you had some kind of alcoholic history. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I also attended a trauma, alcohol and drug abuse through the TOF Center of Baton Rouge in 98.
You were 36 when this crime was committed.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any biological children of your own?
No, ma'am.
I mean, we discussed, last write-up was in 2019. I don't have a whole lot of questions. I have had a lot of information presented. I have a lot of information in your file. But I don't have a lot of questions that need to be answered still. Okay. My colleagues may have some questions.
I have no
Any
questions.
questions?
I have no questions.
What was your original charge?
I was originally charged with aggravated rape.
Okay, I have no further questions either. Is the panel ready to vote?
Mr. Boone, you were granted a plea agreement to 25 years. I want to commend you for your outstanding prison record. The things that you have accomplished are extremely noteworthy. You have completed all of your sex offender classes. But in the balance of things, the law enforcement victim opposition is significant. And with the plea agreement, my vote today is to deny parole.
Jill?
My vote is also to deny.
My vote is also to deny due to victim opposition and law enforcement opposition. I need to mention that both the DA and the sheriff were opposed. So I just want that for the record. So your parole's been denied.
What can be an even more shocking and just horrifying situation? You have this man in your life for 10 years. They're in a relationship. 10 years. This loser, he it starts off with Mr. Freeman, tell us what happened. He gives a whole story, a whole roundabout story. Well, it was 2002. I thought I was gonna have a great year. So I started to drink because, and then I started drinking, and then I got a DUI, and then it was 1 week before I caught this crime. He says, that I got fired. And then my wife woke me up and she said that she would have to be the caregiver because I lost my job and she was going to go out and work. So I had to watch my kid. And then I went and got a bottle of vodka and I smoked a joint and I watched, and then I just went out and I did that. And it's like, what? I mean, he really sounded to me like he's blaming. It was just, how can this even be really? I don't. And then you have the supporters come on, and I fast forwarded the doctor guy. I don't know what he was talking about, some rubbish. It's always the supporters come on and they do like the whole flying turtles and butterflies and everything is so great and let him out. And to his credit, his sister like seemed to get a little bit emotional when she started to reference that she has her own kids that she can't even imagine. But then again, that's just about her. When it's someone else, it's like, who really cares, right? And of course the DA doesn't show up. Nope. DA doesn't show up because again, it's just a disabled child. And Brandy, Cajun Overcomer, our Louisiana native, maybe you've seen her, we've had her on the show a few weeks ago. She said that she knows this girl very, very well, and that she is severely mentally and physically challenged. And she says, here he does blame alcohol. She says that she never saw alcohol around him. He did have the DUI, but I mean, let's be real. Let's just be real. And something else that stuck out to me, he doesn't start, he goes through the whole story without any emotion, and then he starts to cry when he talks about how he tried to unalive himself. That's the only time that he starts to cry. And he says, and then before I turned myself in, I took a bottle of pills, and my victim found the one pill and told her mother, and that saved my life. And he's crying, and it's like, shut up. Like, what is he what's his point there? It's like, what like, why are you saying that? Are you trying to say that she somehow saved your life? And that's it. And then he came to the conclusion he can't be around drugs and alcohol, because otherwise he just might go and do that to a disabled girl. The mother spoke powerfully, because there was DA nowhere to do it. The warden had nothing to add in both cases, actually. So hats off to the warden. That's when the warden isn't so happy about someone getting out. That's usually what they do, is a no comment. And he was given a 25-year deal in Louisiana for this type of crime. If convicted, you would get life or even the death penalty. So it falls under either first degree or aggravated. It's basically the same name for both. First degree is aggravated. And it's just, it's a pretty blanket statement. It goes through what you can be charged for that. It is when 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in this case, he falls under number 6, when the victim is prevented from resisting the act because the victim is a person with a disability. And the legislation actually allows the minimum sentence of life for this crime. If the district attorney seeks a capital verdict, the offender shall be punished by death or life imprisonment and hard labor without the benefit of parole. So that's why he took the plea deal of 25 years. And you might ask, you might say, man, I mean, should they have gone for life? I know 25 years is a lot for these type of crime. We don't see it. Usually they plea for a lesser offense, and they get much less time. But he's going to get out no matter what in just a few years on his good time date. And that's 11/27/2027. That's a scary thought. They all, it's funny, both of these hearings have the same thing in common. They all found Jesus. That was part of their big storyline. And just think about it. He is going to be walking around in just 3 years. That's a scary thought. That's a scary thought. And before I let you go on this one, I'll share Richard's notes, which he has a really good point. You know, I said his sister at the beginning, as she like seemed to get emotional talking about her daughters, but a good question was, one, would she allow her brother to hang out with her 2 teenage daughters? Can you imagine that? And then two is that she turned off her camera when the victim's mother spoke. So she keeps her camera on basically the whole time. She sheds her tears. And then when the victim mother comes on, she turns off her camera. So those are 2 valid points. Thank you, Richard, for sharing that and for covering these hearings and saying, Mandy, you got to do these. And thank you, Kejun, Overcomer.
23 years ago, I was an 18-month-old baby. I was raped, beaten, and left for dead by Jesse Demons. The demons inside that man were pure evil. The things that were done to me, I just cannot comprehend. If it wasn't for the nurses and doctors and the love of my family, I would not have survived. It was a pure miracle that I did. I was taught to forgive and forget, but that only happens in fairy tales. I do not forgive him. Not only was a horrible thing done to me, but it put my family through hell and changed all of our lives forever.
Those are the words of the survivor, of the victim, of the little infant that was wrecked by this monster. Those are the words that are being read by his paternal aunts on behalf of him because he can't be here today because what this roach did to him. Now, if you can imagine it, he was sentenced to 59 years, but up for parole 31 years early. Let's watch this parole hearing in its full, and I will unpack it with what details I have at the end.
Jesse, please state your DOC number for me.
451048.
Okay, Mr. DeMond, I'm gonna read some information to put into the record. You are a first felony offender. You have a parole date of 8/17/24, a good time date of 11/25/2033, and a full term date of 6/25/2055. You're serving a 59-year sentence for second-degree battery, aggravated sexual battery, and second-degree cruelty. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. DeMond, tell me why you think we should let you out today, and tell me a little bit about your offenses.
I can't honestly tell you. That there's a good reason. All I can tell you is that since I've been incarcerated, I have shown due diligence in changing my conduct and becoming a person that God wants me to be. I realize that the act I committed was senseless. There was no point. I experienced some things as a troubled youth, and I lost my direction in life. I got entangled in drugs, and I made a lot of bad decisions coming up that affected a lot of people in a negative manner, and I choose not to be that way anymore. I would like to affect people in a positive manner, educate, and do my calling for Jesus.
Okay. Warden, you have anything to say about it?
Well, Mr. Freeman, of course, as always, first of all, my deepest sympathy to the victim and the family. You know, DeMond has demonstrated, you know, the ability to work hard while being incarcerated. He's completed numerous classes and taken many courses. He's received his GED. He's far as mechanics go, he's received many certifications in all that area. He's one of our tutors back in our VOTEC. He's completed all of the sex offender treatment that is required and asked of him, and he has even completed level 4, which a lot of guys don't do. He's been a facilitator. In other words, he teaches and helps other sex offenders. So that's a positive comment on him, that he's worked hard to gain. He hasn't had a write-up since 2018, which is over 6 years. He's been write-up free. He had a little trouble in the beginning, as most inmates do, but over the last several years, he's done a lot better. He's a scribe member, again, one of our inmates. Again, he's done everything we've asked him to do in here, and in order to try to gain the things he needs to do to rehabilitate himself. Just the amount of time he served versus the crime, another consideration matter, in my opinion.
Thank you, Warden. All right, let's get to those that are in favor. Miss Fern Lee, your sister, Miss Lee.
Good morning. I have been nominated to speak on his behalf. There are 4 of us here today. I'd like to review it in 3 different ways: Jesse, the family, and the state. I believe that Jesse is remorseful. He appears to me when he talks to me on the phone. I know that he doesn't have the chip on his shoulder that he had when he was much younger, and he's not mad at the world like he was when he was much younger. And I'm grateful for that. It's easier to talk to him. It's easier to get along with him, even if it is on the phone or visitation. At this point, all of us except one in the family are of a retirement age. I'll be 72 this year. We are still in a position where we can give him a hand up, not a handout, a hand up, so that when he gets out, he's not looking for some way to support himself, get himself to work, trying to find a roof over his head or food on his table or anything like that. He has a house, he has a bedroom waiting on it. It's the house that represents security for him, the only security he had as a child. We are all in the position that we can help run him to work until he got the money for the insurance, money for the vehicle, on and on. As far as the state, there's a lot of people that reoffend. I don't know, what is it, 30–40%? Runs what, 35,000 plus per person? We got a lot of them sitting out there waiting to take his spot. He's worked hard. He is a master technician. He's got the papers behind him to prove what he has done. And we do have jobs waiting for him. We've got 2 people that are vying for him, and they're about 10 miles from the house. Perfect. They know that he is a felon. That's immaterial to them. They want somebody that'll come to work and work. That's what Jesse does. He goes to work and he works. We just hope that at this point he can be paroled. I realize that the family that was damaged will never recover. They can't recover. It's there. They can't. Is he sorry for it? Yeah, I think he is. Seems to be to me. That's all I can say. Do you have any questions for me?
No, ma'am. Thank you for appearing today. Okay, now we're gonna go to those that are in opposition. The district attorney, I'm gonna let you go last. I'm gonna, unless you wanna go first, because it's your option. But, Stephanie Nash, Victor Van.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm gonna try and get through this as easy as I can. My name is Stephanie Nash. I am Dylan's paternal aunt. I'm here in opposition of Demmon's parole request. What that monster did to Dylan as an 18-month-old baby was pure evil. At 18 months old, Dylan was a healthy, happy, thriving toddler, and then on September 19th, 2001, changed our lives forever due to Demmon's actions. Dylan was in a coma and stayed in ICU for over 8 weeks, not knowing if he was going to live or die. My family never left his side. There was not a place on his entire body you could touch without causing him pain due to the extensive trauma his little body had suffered. When Dylan woke up from the coma, he was paralyzed on one side of his body. He was blind and could no longer speak or eat. After multiple surgeries and physical therapy, he regained his sight, but still had some paralysis and still could not walk properly or speak. We had to learn sign language to even communicate with him. Dylan suffered seizures for years and had to endure numerous surgeries to replace the shunt to drain the fluid from his brain. In addition, he also had to have several surgeries on his leg and years of wearing braces to help him walk. My mom dedicated the rest of her life caring for Dylan. When she got cancer, my dad, grandmother, and myself had to take over and care for not only Dylan, but my mother. The financial strain it put on my parents and my family was just added stress. I quit my job to take care of both mom and Dylan so that my dad could work to support them. Dylan had to have round-the-clock care because of the seizures. Dylan's entire school life, he was in special classes due to the brain damage and his disabilities. He was never able to participate in sports or any other outdoor activities. He had to have tutoring and additional help with all of his schoolwork. As Dylan has gotten older, he still struggles with those disabilities and has had to live the last 23 years of his life with the lasting, devastating, life-altering trauma that was inflicted on him. Dylan will have to live with these disabilities for the rest of his life. He doesn't get a reprieve. Dylan will have to live with these disabilities. He was sentenced to a lifetime of struggles and disabilities because of Demmon's actions. So I'm here today to ask you to deny the parole request. Demmon should not be allowed to be a free man. Dylan will never be free to live a normal life. I would also like to read a statement from Dylan. 23 years ago, I was an 18-month-old baby. I was raped, beaten, and left for dead by Jesse Demons. The demons inside that man were pure evil. The things that were done to me, I just cannot comprehend. If it wasn't for the nurses and doctors and the love of my family, I would not have survived. It was a pure miracle that I did. I was taught to forgive and forget, but that only happens in fairy tales. I do not forgive him. Not only was a horrible thing done to me, but it put my family through hell and changed all of our lives forever. I'm living the best life I can with the lasting effects of the trauma that Demons inflicted on me. The love of my family had for me was greater than the evil inside that man, and I'm alive today because of that love. Job 4:8. As I have observed, those who plow evil and those who sow trouble reap it. It teaches us that those who sow evil actions and trouble will inevitably reap the consequences of their actions. Make him reap those consequences of his evil actions and deny his parole. Thank you.
Appreciate you speaking. Let's go to Avery Stevens. victim's grandfather?
Yes.
It was
I'm-
Steve.
I'm sort of. I don't understand how he can even come up for parole at this time after having such a long sentence. I mean, it's unbelievable that what this has put our family through, and you heard Stephanie, she said it all. I mean, everything was said. But if there was any point in time that y'all would have to seen the pictures of this baby, I guarantee you, he'd stay in there a little bit longer. Just the pictures would do it.
Thank you.
Stephanie said it all. I mean, it's unreal that I don't know that people can be rehabilitated for something like this and still think they're okay. I don't understand. But yes, my wife, she stayed the whole time in New Orleans with Dylan. And maybe come home 2 times in that 8 weeks he was in intensive care. This was the worst case of child abuse ever happened in Webster Parish that lived. Most of them don't live. But like I said, the prayers, I'm just, I don't know what else to say after, because Stephanie said it all. She had it down to the T.
Okay, we appreciate that, Mr. Stevens. Penny Linton, victim's aunt.
Yes, good morning. My name is Penny Litton and I'm Dylan's great aunt. I am the sister of my late sister Karen Stevens. I want to thank all of you for allowing Dylan's family to try to express our concerns. If you have even one moment of thought of his release, please keep this rapist and predator locked up. You have heard 2 family members express somewhat what Dylan has gone through. There is not enough time to tell everything this young man has endured. Not every single detail for the last 22 years of his life. My sister, Karen, gave up everything to make sure that Dylan lived, no matter how hard it would be on her. Karen devoted every single ounce of energy she had up until her death a short 5 years later. Karen, my sister, made us promise that we would make sure that we fought to make sure that Jesse stayed locked up and got the sentence that he deserved, the maximum allowed. Dylan was approximately 20 years old before he knew everything that happened to him. During the beating and the rape he endured, he asked as a child, he asked as a teen many times. He was told about his beatings as a teen, then later about the rape. It was hard for us to get through that part with him. Only after his mind was able to comprehend, he was in his 20s before he found out about his rape. You've heard about his mental challenges, and that's why we waited. In closing, I would beg you to not allow this monster out of his jail cell. He will do this again and again to someone else's child. He needs to serve his 55 years. He was sentenced to. Maybe by then he will not be able to hurt another baby. And we are talking about a baby. He was 18 months old and had to start a whole new life. He had to learn how to walk again. He had to learn everything again. And that took so many years for Dylan to get back to his 18-month-old self. Trust me when I say this, you nor your families need to be sitting where my family is sitting at today. Defending a child in your family to keep a predator in prison. It's not fair to Dylan for him to even think he's served enough time at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, now we're gonna go to the Assistant District Attorney, Mr. Richard Wright.
Thank you, members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for allowing the family to speak and be a part of this. Let me express on behalf of District Attorney Skylar Marvin the strongest opposition that we can face or we can put forth against any modification or any parole for Mr. Denmon. I was not the assistant district attorney on this case many years ago, but everyone in our local region had heard about this heinous, terrible crime. Judge Ford Stinson was the presiding judge in the case, and Judge Stinson has since retired, but is known in our area for being a very level-headed and fair judge. He's not a judge that routinely would give out lengthy jail sentences, prison sentences, and he would not do it lightly. But I would be remiss if I didn't refer back to what Judge Stinson told Mr. Denmon at his sentencing. And Judge Stinson said that in his many years of practicing law, and it's notable that Judge Stinson actually came from a background in the public defender's office. This is not someone who, came even from the prosecutor's standpoint. He is someone who was with the public defender's office for many years. But Judge Stinson said that in his many years of practicing law, this had to be the most gruesome crime that he had ever seen committed. It was a heinous act done upon a defenseless 18-month-old child. But what I think is important, and I appreciate the family discussing it with Dylan and being able to discuss it with him, because that helps me feel that I can talk a little bit about some of the horrific facts of this. But the board needs to understand that this was not a one-time thing. This was the medical evidence indicated that this was repeated abuse of a defenseless 18-month-old child, repeated rapes of a defenseless 18-month-old child. By the time that Dylan was rushed to Minden Medical Center, he had a perforated left eardrum. He had hemorrhaging, rectal bruising, and bleeding and lesions. He had multiple bruises that were all in various stages of healing. And Judge Stinson pointed out in the sentencing that was significant because it wasn't just a one-time thing. This was an ongoing torture of an 18-month-old baby. And it had happened over a period of time. It was involved shaken baby syndrome that was clearly not accidental, and strangulation that was not accidental. One of the doctors, Dr. Springer, determined that Dylan had been victimized and re-victimized and re-victimized. It's also notable, and I would like the board to understand, if they don't already, that Mr. Denmon committed this act while he was out on bond for another violent attack. He also performed poorly on probation for other crimes in the years immediately preceding this. He is, it's also very notable that at the time of his sentencing, and I don't know, I didn't sense any remorse today, but Judge Stinson put in the sentencing and noted that he showed no, I'm gonna read what Judge Stinson had in the sentencing. He said, "You have shown absolutely no remorse for your crimes." I do agree that there is a high degree of recidivism. I believe that people that are child predators have a higher rate. And I don't know anything that can be done with them other than to keep them away from the most vulnerable in society, children. And this was a heinous crime. Mr. Demmon remains a danger to the community. There is strong victim opposition, and based on that and based on the underlying facts of the case, the 26th Judicial District and DA Marvin strongly oppose this. I would just like to add, because Dylan added a Bible verse, that Ezra 7:26 says, "Whoever will not obey the law of your God or the law of the king, let judgment be strictly executed upon him, whether by death or banishment." This is not an individual who has shown any propensity to follow the laws of man, and we would ask that his parole be denied.
Thank you, sir. All right, your case was assigned to Miss Ledoux.
Which means that I have read your file extensively, making sure that I'm aware of all of the information provided to us. It was 120 pages. I did note that you had 5 prior arrests, although you were a first felony offender. You had 5 prior arrests. Some great supervision. I want to ask, what was your relationship with the victim's mother?
Biologically, we're a third cousin.
You were third cousin. Okay, so it was not a romantic involvement?
Yes, it was.
It was. So, and how long had that relationship lasted until your incarceration? How long were you involved?
I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
the child is 18 months old. That was not your child. So were you involved before the child was born, before Dylan was born?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so it hadn't been that long.
No, it hadn't been on.
I don't have any further questions. Mr. Bone.
Okay, Ms. Tillis, do you have any questions?
No, no.
I have no questions either. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes, you ready to vote, Mr. Dimon?
Yes, Mr. Dimon, I want you to understand that when we ask you about this crime, all you talked about was yourself, not about the victim, not about the victim's family, indicating very little thought to the victim. You have a static 99 score of 4, which within the Department of Corrections evaluation is a very high sex offender score, and I'm very glad that you've taken your sex offender treatment. I'm glad that it was afforded to you and that you are involved in that. But today, you've only served 24 years of a 59-year sentence, and for those reasons, my vote is to deny.
Mr. Tillis?
My vote is to deny.
Okay, Mr. Dimon, my vote would also be to deny due to law enforcement and victim opposition. I want to thank everyone that participated today, and good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
A fitting end to this monstrous parole hearing. I'm happy Miss Ledoux did that kind of mic drop about how, you show no remorse. You watch this parole. I had to go back to the beginning to rewatch how he described his crime, just to see what was there. Like what did I just see? And all he says was, well, The act that I committed was senseless. There was no point. I was around, wrong people. I drink. I commit myself to Jesus. Like, we haven't heard that before. No, no. It's the most horrific, vicious crime against children. How they almost unanimously say how they commit themselves to Jesus. And I love the two biblical quotes given both by little Dylan, who is now an adult, and the DA. And on that note, you hear from, well, actually, first let me go talk about whoever it was, one of his supporters that spoke on behalf of their family. Thank goodness we only had to hear from one person. But she starts off by saying, there's three things I'm going to talk about, right? Jesse, family, and the state. And she goes on to say, he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. He's not mad anymore. And then the family, we're all retirement age. We're gonna help him. And then finally the state. The state is so expensive for you to what, like $33,000 a person, and there's a lot of people waiting to take his spot. Yeah. So release him, like, I don't know. His full term date is 2055. Well, just release him before then. Who cares, right? Please. It's like, shut up. Do you not realize that you're trying to release a monster? How blind can you be? There is nothing there. There is nothing there. You are talking about a defenseless child. Holy God. As someone who I can't. I'm visiting. I don't know if you could tell. I'm visiting family. I'm not in my normal spot. I brought my computer with me. I have it, but the lighting is. And I have many siblings, and one of my sisters has a baby that's about 18 months old now, and they are defenseless. They are. Just to think, and you hear the DA go through the details of this repeated horrific crime. And I don't know why he couldn't get a life sentence. The judge, it seems that maybe, and I don't have information. Richard did and thank you, Richard, for doing the research on this and all. But, during my traveling, Richard has gone above and beyond. He's been actually recording all the hearings because I haven't been able to do it. And I know a lot of you write, who's Richard? And I bring him up all the time, but we are, would love to have him come on so you can all meet him. But he is someone that just does this as a passion project. He doesn't, get any other benefit from it than helping expose the really the good, the bad, and the ugly of the judicial system. That's what his passion is. And it's he was convicted of second-degree battery and second-degree cruelty of a juvenile. That's what he has here, and I guess that was the maximum sentence. I don't know why the DA couldn't bring on other charges that would be more severe. It's just shocking to me that someone like this isn't locked away for life. I don't understand why they didn't pursue harsher charges based off of why would it be second degree? Why would it not be first degree? And I scrolled through the legislation trying to figure this out, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I just don't know. But is it more two-facedness by the judiciary system? I mean, the judge clearly made a statement there. He said the most gruesome crime I have ever seen in his time on the bench, and I'm guessing maybe even as a defense attorney. And he was saying this was a judge that was more leaning on the, who was a defense attorney, a public defender for his career before being a judge. Why is he not locked away for life? Why does he have a good time date of 2033? 9 years from now. Think about that. Not 9, sorry, I'm bad at math. 7 years. He is going to be walking free in 7 years. Someone who has the capability, someone who might be, I'm just a man, dude. I'm not a doctor. I'm only diagnosed, I'm only speculating on a situation like this. But I mean, can we not say psychopath? Sociopath? I mean, there's nothing there. It's why is he not locked up for life? Why was he not given the ultimate punishment if there's any case that classifies as the most severe? And even, listen to this, he's gonna get released at a static 99, a high. Not that I care about these stupid static 99 scores, but you know that if you have a high score, that you really must be dangerous, because we see who they classify as low risk scores. And on that note, I'll just share with you the static 99 form that I Googled. I've been wanting to look at this for a while, just what a joke it is, because of course it's a joke, but now it's like, it really is. And I've spoken to people who've seen these different forms, and some of you have contacted me and kind of told me what a joke it is. But this is minor. This is it. I mean, this is what off of. Can you see it right? I don't know if you can see it. Okay, so you just fill out a 10-point questionnaire. That's how sophisticated this form is. I'm not surprised. We know that the whole algorithm score is ridiculous. But risk factor question 1. Young, score according to the offender's age at the time of release. Flat minimum release date. So depending on how old they are, you get a score. So if you're age 18 to 34, you get automatically 1 point. 35 to 39, 0. Because we all know that when you're 34.9, you're more dangerous than when you're 35. Obviously, that's very clear to us. I mean, not the ones that we don't have PhD, so it's not so clear. We're not quite sure about that, but clearly it's. Oh, and then if you're 40 years old, you see, as soon as you turn 40, now you get a -1 on the risk score. You're less dangerous, because a lot happens when you turn 40. All of a sudden, your desire for children, it just goes away, obviously. Oh, and 60 and older. See, as soon as you turn 60, then you get less -3 points, because as we all know, the second anyone turns 60, I mean, there are no 60-year-old chomos, roaches, right? No, -3 points. And they go to question 2, which is a real, another brilliant question. Have you ever lived with a lover for at least 2 years? So if the answer is no, you get a point. You get punished. Because we all know that monsters never live with, women with children and things like that. Nope, never happens. Let's see. Question 3. Index, non-sexual violence. Any convictions? Okay. I mean, that one I get. I guess. All right. Now, prior non-sexual violence, any convictions? So these are non. So you get, again, if there's yes or no. And this is like, can you imagine that if you have a prior, you only get 1 point extra? Prior sex offenders. So charges, convictions, they actually have a different bar for charges and convictions, which is just says all what you need to know. So if there are none, you get 0 points. If there was a prior charge, you get, 1 to 2. If there's a conviction, you get 1. If you have 3 to 5 prior charges for sex offenses and 2 to 3 convictions, you only get 2 points. Look at that. You can't make this stuff up. Okay. I mean, let's just skip through, right? I mean, you get the point. This is what they do for their algorithm score. And he reached a score of 4. He reached a score of, so if you're -3 to 1, you're a low moderate risk. If you're 2 to 3, you're moderate to low. And if you're 4 to 5, you're moderate to high. So he's not high, he's a 4. So he's considered just a 4 to high. He's the third highest level. Now, if the score is 4, which is what he is, on the static 99R, which predicts sexual recidivism, this offender scored in the moderate to high risk range. Offender with his same score from the routine samples have been found to sexually recidivate at 6.1% to 12.2% after 5 years. This is what their chart says. And, 12%, I don't even believe, like that means they get caught, first of all. And that's also a ridiculous thing, because think about what they're saying after 5 years. Now, if the score is -3, they say that it's an 0.7 to 2% chance. This whole thing, where did they come up with this data? We'll have to do a deep dive on this later. The whole thing's ridiculous. As we already knew. So for him to get a 4, he would have had to. So he'd be younger than. I don't know where he would have. Anyways, I feel like I digress. We saw parole hearings today that just make your blood boil, that make you rage. We saw the system being called out for how broken it is. We saw victims wondering why, how can this be? And this is again why we do this. It's so clear to any of us non-PhDs that the system is wrecked. It's so clear. It's so evident. Now, the more eyeballs on this, eventually I do think it will lead to change. I guess we can say thank goodness the parole board, they denied. It's not my favorite members on the board. I do like but even Mr. Freeman, he did a good job managing the situation, and Miss Ledoux, I appreciate her. She does a great job. You remember the disgust from Mr. Freeman on that last one, really just the disgust from the board in general, like not even wasting their breath on them. And you could see they're giving a lot more attention to the survivors, and we are seeing DAs show up that we have never seen before. This is, I do think, becoming a little bit of a trend. We're seeing more DAs show up more often, not as often as they should. They clearly missed a really critical case, but we are seeing it. We'll keep doing this as long as we can, and with that, I'll let you go.